Hi, this is Anna, and this is Check It at the Round Table, where we discuss movies, books, music, and stuff. Today, we are discussing Red, White, and Royal Blue, which I'm sorry you guys really can't see the cover because of my glare screen on my Kindle. However, yesterday I reviewed the movie, which I have watched twice since it premiered. I'm living in Asia right now, so I had to use a VPN to watch it because it is not available over here normally. But anyway, so movie compared to the book, you can go over and check out my podcast on that. It's an extremely long podcast because there was a lot to discuss about that movie. It was a good show. So anyway, but Red, White, and Royal Blue, the book. This was a New York Times bestseller book back, I believe, in 2019. And it basically tells the hypothetical story of what would have happened if there had been a female president that was in power and if her son fell in love with the Prince of England. It's a very interesting idea, and I think it's also kind of intriguing that Casey McQuiston wrote this book because she really kind of wanted to see an alternate reality compared to what we did have in American politics at that time. Now, I do not get political on this podcast, so I'm not here to say that what we had at that time was good, bad, or indifferent. It was just what we had at that time. However, I think it is kind of interesting that she created this as kind of an outlet for what the world might have looked like if it had been different. So what did I think about the book? Well, I rarely read books, to be honest, except, well, I do read excessively, but mainly for my college courses, like a 700-page business law book last semester, and because of that, and I read a lot of daily news to my students, or with my students, depending. So I'm like, I read excessively, but I do not really take time to read books, and I certainly do not take time to read novels. However, when I found out that Red, White, and Royal Blue was coming out here about 2 months ago, I got an alert on YouTube that they were coming out with the show that was based off of this book. I was very excited because I rarely see BL drama in Western film, and I was like, I'm going to hope that this is a great show, and I'm going to read the book because I'd like to kind of be able to do a comparison contrast of both. Plus, I'm like, hey, I can do a review, tax deduct the cost. So anyway, I was like, I got the book on ebook through Amazon Kindle. I also went ahead and purchased the hardcover edition too, which I'm having shipped from the States, but it hasn't arrived yet because it has a final collector's edition chapter written from Henry's point of view, which I'm really curious about. So that's one of the things I'm like, I did pay like $20. It'll be more like $30 by the time it gets here. But anyway, I will have the actual copy of the collector's edition book, which is not necessarily rare, but it is getting harder to come by because of the movie becoming popular. So anyway, overall, I really liked a lot of the book. I don't really like most novels. I certainly do not like most romance novels because I find them aggravating and they really make my gag reflex come to mind. However, I did enjoy this book. Now, I will say there were some spicy bits. I was like, it kind of reminds me of when I was a child, I had to read The Shepherd of the Hills, which for those of you who do not know, it's a very old kind of classic 1950s book by Harold Bell Wright, who was like very, very over-the-top romantic in parts. My great-grandmother loved Shepherd of the Hills, so my mom was like, you need to read this book at least twice because you're named after them. And I was like, I kind of gagged through that book twice. But anyway, my point is there were some spicy bits in Shepherd of the Hills, and I am reminded of Shepherd of the Hills in a couple of parts in this book of Casey McQuiston. It is not that she's not a good writer. I'm just like, I didn't really appreciate the spicy book bits myself, but I am a demisexual, and I'm really not into that anyway, so perhaps that's why I'm not really into that part. However, if you remove the spicy bits, which Some people can do, some people can't, and I totally understand whichever camp someone falls into on this deal, because there are certain books that's like, I have cracked the cover on and I'm going, nope, not moving any further. One of them that comes to mind is the Bad Buddy book that the series is based off of. I love the series. It is fantastic. It deserved all awards it got. But the book is kind of an utter sex expose, basically, through the entire thing, from what I'm ascertaining from my cursory view of it. And I was like, I don't want to hear about people and their exploits on like every single freaking page. I'm like, we can leave a few things to the imagination, at least an honest opinion. But, some people really like those kinds of books. So I'm not here to say they're good or bad or indifferent. I'm just saying, for me, it's not my thing. However, with Casey McQuiston's book, she wrote it in such a way that you can, if you want to, skip the spicy bits, as it were, when, potted mint or basil comes into view, or, the spicy equivalent thereof, and go to like the morning after when they're having Earl Grey tea, for example. So I really did appreciate that you could skip just a few sections if you wanted to, and it really didn't detract from the whole of the book. The other thing I will say about Casey McQuiston's work, and I might be slaughtering her name, I'm terribly sorry, I'm not good with how that CQ goes together, but is that she really is a very good writer, which I do not see a lot in modern literature. I normally read very old books because I find them much better written than modern books, but I do have to say she had a very good perception in her work. Like, for example, I'm just going to read a couple of, well, maybe more than a couple of passages here. Let's see. I highlighted a few pieces. Let's see where the highlights are. Not at the beginning, apparently. But let's see here, just a minute. I'm still trying to figure out my Kindle. I've had this Kindle for years. I've never used the Kindle because I've always had actual physical books before, but now with my traveling, it's like you cannot fit all the books on the freaking plane. So I'm fitting them all on the Kindle, but I'm still having trouble maneuvering my Kindle. So anyway, for example, when he and Henry have the cake incident, as it were, both of them feel very unpleasant about that experience. And I love how Alex, in the, I think it's page, let's see here, chapter 3, on the first page, where it says Alex thinks their main shared life experience is probably wishing that they could set the quote adrift between them and watch it drown, about the fact that they are so similar, because Alex does not think he is very similar to Henry. Henry doesn't really think he's very similar to Alex. I'm going, that is kind of funny, although they do find that they have more in similarity than they thought they did. So overall, I think that the things I liked most about this book was the fact that there is very good sense of humor in the book, and there's also, you're dealing with two people who are in their early 20s. So, for example, Henry is 23, Alex is 21. They are adults, of course, but they're still trying to navigate how they handle the world, how they handle themselves. And I think it's a very good example of how in certain relationships people can build with one another in a way that really does make them greater together than they are apart. And I think that's one of the cool things about the relationship described in this book, because even though, of course, yes, there's heat, there's passion, there's whatever, which I kind of bloody well skip a lot of that, but even with that in mind, the other thing that's interesting about this book is it really does showcase a couple who is wanting to be there for each other. Now, I think it's interesting because they try to be oh so casual when they start out in their relationship. But the thing I think both of them fully realize, even from the onset, and as they later admit to one another, is they really never were casual, even though they were trying to appear to be casual, because their hearts, their minds are already invested. And it's really cool to see how this develops. And also, I think I like both characters a lot in the story. I mean, Henry has some very good qualities, Alex has some very good qualities. But I think the thing that I like most about the story in its entirety is the fact that you have a character like Henry who has been basically told that he cannot be who he is to the world. He has to basically live this half life. And I'm not saying that like your sexuality defines who you are, because I happen to think that it's just an infinitesimal part of who we are as people. However, for Henry, the fact that he cannot tell the world who he cares about, that he has to, feel like he has to hide in the shadows with his relationships, which to me is far more than just sexual orientation. Just being able to say who he cares about is such a big issue. And that he finally meets someone in Alex who is willing to go to bat for him, so to speak. And in the same way, once Henry knows that Alex is willing to go to bat for him, Henry is right there at the base too, getting ready to hit the ball. So, I think that the fact that those two have each other's back, and also that they are willing to be so supportive, and if they need to step back, they will. So that's all things that I really liked about this book. I will say there are some things that are not appropriate for children. I would not give this book to like my 15-year-old to read. Probably not going to send this so they can read it. That's not something I would advise. However, if my 18-year-old wanted to read it or 17-year-old wanted to read it, we could reevaluate at that point. But anyway, I wouldn't have a problem like reading certain parts of this book to a child, but I would definitely omit large chunks of the spicy bits, so to speak. I do think, however, it's a good example of showing a homosexual couple in the Western culture and showing them as very, very similar to everyone else. In the fact, like, for example, in a lot of Western dramas, like the one that comes most to mind is Modern Family, but we really don't see a good overall viewpoint of homosexual couples. We see what we consider a stereotype couple. And I spend a lot of my time with my students here in Asia trying to explain that no, not every homosexual couple in America is like the couple in Modern Family or like the couple in, another famous American drama or like the lesbian couple in Friends. I'm like, no homosexual couple I have ever met is like either one of those couples. So I'm like, it's really sad to me that we don't see a better and more broad representation of LGBTQI plus individuals in film. I think the best examples I can think of at the moment that have come out recently are Heartstopper season 1 and 2 through Netflix, and then also Red, White, and Royal Blue, which just came out on August 11th. They are really good examples. Now, the book versus the movie, how did I think about, like, which did I like best? I really don't see them as one that I like more than the other. I really enjoyed reading the book. I looked forward to kind of just reading through it and finishing up literally the day before the movie aired. And then the movie, I also enjoyed. But if you want to get kind of a deeper understanding of the two main characters, I definitely recommend reading the book and watching the movie, because it will give you kind of a better overarching viewpoint. And I also think Casey McQuiston did an excellent job. She also has a cameo appearance in the movie. If you go to like the second to the last final scene where they're supposedly making the concession speech, Casey is sitting there with her laptop. So you can see her as her cameo appearance, which is pretty cool. So I'm really glad that Amazon Original Movies decided to make this movie, and they did a brilliant job of bringing the adaptation to life, as well as the two lead actors who portrayed in this film. Nicholas and Zachary, I believe are their names. Great job. excellent job. I rarely see actors do such an incredible job of bringing characters to life. So I think that the book is very, very good. However, if you are not into BL drama or BL books, now if you aren't into BL books, I would still advise you to check out this book, because I've tried to read several BL books, and I usually throw them out in a heap because I really do not like how they are so full of spicy pots. I'm going mint, basil, a bit of chili pepper thrown in kind of thing. I'm like, I know that is a part of life, but I really don't see why we have to have so much of it in almost all the BL manga I have seen. Or not BL manga, but there are BL mangas and there are BL books. But it's gotten to the point where, like, I've tried a few from Asia, and I think the only one I can really recommend at all is Our Family Dining Table, or Our Dining Table. It's a wonderful manga from Japan, and it also has some really great recipes in it too. I'll do a review on that later. But other than that one, I really can't recommend any written BL books that I have read so far. I'm sure there are some excellent ones, and Heartstopper. Heartstopper is a really good series if you like BL drama. I would highly recommend Heartstopper. And also Heartstopper you can read with the kiddies. You do not have to skip anything. Even with the recent adaptations that have been added to it, I haven't found anything that you couldn't have your kid read. So I really appreciate Osmond's work, because she's making it so that people can read BL drama regardless of their age group, and there's nothing that you have to skip. Now with Casey McQuiston's book, it's definitely an adult book, not for kids. I highly recommend it though, because it will give you a broader viewpoint on the movie, and overall, I would give it probably at least an 8 out of 10. I would probably give it a 10 out of 10 if it didn't have the excessive spicy bits. And also the other thing that I didn't really like about the book was the fact that a lot of the times that Alex and Henry were together as a couple, there was a lot of alcohol involved. Now, let me explain. I'm not against alcohol at all. I actually don't drink myself because I have a health condition and it's not advised by my doctors. But I have many friends that drink alcohol, and I love reading about wine and vinting process. It's kind of a mild obsession of mine, which I try to curb because I do not have room for all those wine magazines. But I have nothing against alcohol. However, I do not think that your relationship and your physical relations with one another should be based entirely on when you happen to be intoxicated. And in a lot of the book, Alex and Henry were both pretty snockered for a lot of those moments, as it were. I really liked how in the movie we didn't have that at all. So all the times when Alex and Henry were together as a couple, it's not that they didn't maybe have a glass of champagne or a glass of brandy, but they were not like drinking excessively in the middle of having their interpersonal relationship together, which I really appreciated. The director was very thoughtful about that. And it's nothing against Casey McQuiston and her writing. It's just I really think it is not really advisable that you be drunk for all your moments, as it were. I'm just saying it really kind of detracts and kind of pulls away from those moments and makes you wonder if they really mean a lot to those individuals, even though I'm sure they do. But that was the thing that I didn't like about the book, in addition to the spicy bits. Now, I will say it's not like Alex and Henry are both drunken sots at all in the book. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they drink a lot more excessively in the book than they do in the drama. The other thing I think you have to consider, though, is we are all dealing with individuals in their early 20s. And no offense to individuals in their early 20s, like 21, I think Alex is. But he's panicking on a lot of things, and he thinks alcohol will help. And I'm not here to say it won't help him calm down a little bit on certain things. But I'm just saying that I'm looking forward to maybe there being a sequel to this book where Alex isn't having to reach for the brandy quite so often when he comes to his interpersonal relationships, for example, or whiskey, as it were, or whatever. And I'm not saying that Alex has a problem with alcohol, although it is kind of hinted at that he might, because he keeps alcohol under his bed in the stash. He's drinking whiskey when he's stressed, and yeah, I mean, it's not like a huge deal, but you do kind of wonder if maybe he has a little bit of a stress addiction problem related to alcohol. Henry, I don't really see that so much. I mean, he does tout off with the champagne, but I'm going, he was stressed, and that's like a one-time deal, whereas Alex is kind of like throughout the book always looking for something. So anyway, but overall, highly recommend the book. It gives you a broader viewpoint of the characters. Also, go ahead and go over and check out Red, White, and Blue, the movie. If you want to check out my podcast on the movie, it's below this one, although it's very, very long. I'm sorry, peeps. I kind of went off on a digression there. I will maybe do a shorter review of Red, White, and Blue as well, but you can check out that. Also, the movie is available on Amazon Prime if you have Amazon Prime. However, if you do not live in the US, it's proving kind of difficult to watch. I watched it through Surfshark using a VPN based out of Boston or New York. I had no trouble watching the movie that way. If you try to watch it in Asia, I'm not sure you can see it. They were promoting it with in the Philippines and Australia, so you might be able to watch it there. But again, I'm just not sure, because a lot of the Amazon original movies are not available in other countries than the US, which I find kind of sad. But anyway, as long as you've got a VPN that works, you can go ahead and watch that. Check it at the round table. Oh, and the book is available in paperback, hardcover, and ebook form. I have the ebook form. You can get the paperback off of Amazon or eBay. If you want the special collector's edition paperback with the final chapter, I recommend you go to eBay. There's some sellers selling it for like under 30 USD. You can still get a copy. My guess is those are going to be selling out pretty rapidly because of the film. The reason that I recommend the special collector's edition is if you do like the book, you're going to probably want that last chapter that Henry has about 4 years after the final chapter in the original book. Check it at the round table. Bye.